of the GGF. And if I may, Anda, may I set the scene as to why we're having this conversation?
Absolutely, yeah.
Basically, you are now, I've received a press release to tell us that you now have a new position within the GGF, which we're all delighted about. I mean, you have led the commercial division, GGF commercial, for some time now, and you and your team have done a great job in actually raising the profile, certainly from my point of view, of the whole of that particular section. So it's no great surprise to know that you're going up to greater things, if you like. So you're now being in a position of being the Chief Development Officer for the GGF. But reading through the press release, it was quite difficult to understand exactly how that works between yourself and John Agnew, because he is still MD, but he's looking after the day-to-day working. And it read very much that he was looking after the day-to-day working, but then you were looking after the whole of the organization for development. So I wondered how that was going to work in practical terms. Quite difficult working with someone else on equal terms.
Yeah, so the way I'm thinking about it is that we're in a leadership partnership together, and that word partnership's really important. It won't work unless John and I work really closely together. Fortunately, I've had a good few months, probably getting on for 8 months actually now, of working closely with John since coming back from maternity leave. And we do work well together, and we keep each other informed. So even before this change, we've already got the sort of relationship where, you know, we help each other out, keep each other informed. And that's really important from a partnership like this. You know, we do need to, I guess, be two parts of the same coin, two halves of the same coin, whatever the expression is, to make it work. But, you know, we both have different areas of responsibility. As you said, John will be looking after the day-to-day side of things, so keeping stuff ticking along, making sure our members are happy, dealing with any issues that come up. Whereas I'm about sort of positive development for the group. So things like new products, initiatives, member benefits, looking at our value proposition, all those sides of things to drive it forward, set the strategy, find the basis that means we're going to keep growing and developing. But also from an internal point of view, looking at, are there better ways that we can be doing things? So how do we really make the most of the group and its talents, basically? Right.
So is it a fact then that you and John both report to Tony Smith and the board equally?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So even before the change, John and I both reported directly into the board via Tony, our president, and that's continuing. So yeah, both reporting into the board, and I guess have equal responsibility in that respect.
So not really as complicated as it seems then, really. I mean, is this anything to do with, I mean, it was always a feeling, certainly I heard from different quarters, that GGF probably missed out a little bit during the pandemic, and other trade organizations came to the fore a bit and GGF lagged behind. Is it something to do with trying to re-establish the position of GGF as the prime trade association?
Not at all. I mean, the primary driver is really, we've recognised that there are so many opportunities out there, and by freeing up my time to effectively capitalise on those, take advantage of them, it just means we can do so much more as a group, and you know, for our members and for the wider industry. So it's about you know, the timing is, you know, with any business, you do reflect from time to time and think about, you know, what more could we be doing, how better could we be doing things. And you know, the change came out of that period of reflection, but it was to do with us, and not to do with anyone else. You know, in my opinion, GGF is still the leading trade federation. Obviously, there's always more that we want to do, and that's going to be part of my new role.
How does it affect the people that you worked with, like Chris Bedell and Liz Clark and people like that, who all did a great job with you? Is that going to be difficult for them because they must you've worked very closely with them. Now they're kind of working for two different bosses in two different areas, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with any period of change, there comes with that a period of adjustment as people get used to doing things slightly differently. And, we're really blessed in that we do have really talented group of, senior managers that head up each of those businesses. Chris and Liz, as you mentioned, also Irene Akpajaro for Installsure and Dave Meacham for RISA. They're all very talented, very driven individuals who've made a big difference, and that's going to continue. So yes, there'll be a period of adjustment, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm still around, and we'll be working very closely with each of those people on the development and growth opportunities within each of their businesses.
It seems strange to me that you've got two of you working equal terms, if you like, heading up the organization and driving it on both fronts. But you've got these different titles. Is that going to be confusing? I mean, it's certainly confusing for me. I just wondered if it's going to be confusing externally, particularly, where you've still got a managing director and then you've got a chief development officer.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I was originally discussing the changes, it wasn't something that I really considered. I'm not the sort of person that's precious about titles. For me, it's all about the action you take, that you're showing leadership, and basically I'm doing a good job and driving the businesses forward. So it's not something that I'm bothered about. It's interesting to hear feedback that perhaps it's confusing and gives the wrong perception, and but I think, it'd be interesting to see as we get on with the jobs. I think people will come to realise how things actually are. But if not, maybe it's something we reflect on in, say 6 months' time if it is causing confusion, and take a look. Because as I said, I'm not precious whether I'm called Chief Development Officer or the monkey's uncle, as long as I do a good job.
No, I can understand that, and I think you're right to say it. It's just an observation, if you like.
Yeah,
and I think it's
always interested to hear people's views. So yeah, thanks for sharing that feedback.
Yeah, I think it's just important that people understand the position from outside. Exactly, if you like, the power that both of you have got in the different areas.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you able to share any of your plans going forward? I mean, obviously you're carrying on the commercial side. Have you got new plans in the commercial arena? Anything exciting coming up?
I mean, on the commercial side of things, it's going to be continuing, what we've been working on already. And, you'll be aware of some of that. So, for example, with BFRC, we've been expanding what we do. So, for example, the noise reduction ratings that were released, we're building on that sort of thing. With Fencer, there's quite a few exciting things coming up. I can't talk about them all at the moment, unfortunately, because they're still in development, but very soon you'll be hearing fully about our full launch in Scotland. So there are some great things going on in commercial that will continue. With GGF, obviously, I need to get my head around. Really, with any sort of strategic and development type of role, you need to really understand your customers and your members and the industry to be able to come up with sensible solutions. So I see, the early stages of my role in terms of the actual trade federation of really getting to understand our members' wants and needs, and also, those of the wider industry, so that we can, create some things that really matter, will make a difference and will drive things forward. So an area of particular interest is around skills and the skill shortage. It's affecting absolutely everyone. Through the conversations in Fencer, I think there's not a day goes by that someone doesn't mention to me that they're struggling to get decent staff, that they're struggling to get staff, full stop. And that does cause issues, and we can see some failures through the assessment work we do. It's down to people rushing jobs because they're so busy and not having appropriate staff. So they're not finishing ceiling work under doors, for example, which, you know, people who are well trained obviously know to do. So that's something that I think there's a lot that we want to do to be able to help further for the whole, you know, for the good of the whole industry regarding skills.
I mean, there's definitely been a boom for the industry. We all understand that. And that must have put a fair amount of pressure on the organisation all round. Is that a fact?
Yeah, it's definitely a fact. I mean, it was brilliant seeing the bounce back after the first lockdown, where obviously the industry was properly shut down, and to see that just continuing unabated. You know, as we can start going on holiday again, it'll be interesting to see whether people start pouring their money into that rather than home improvements. But I'm certainly not getting the feeling that that's, you know, that's it's not going to be a buoyant industry for another, you know, at least another 6 months, but probably well into next year as well, which is brilliant for all of us. But yeah, I mean, we've been receiving more calls, particularly from homeowners, you know, especially when people have been furloughed, spending more time at home, they've got more time on their hands. So, you know, they're noticing things that bug them about their windows or their doors. So we are, you know, we have been receiving more calls, and, you know, it's been very challenging from an operational customer service perspective at times. But, you know, it's a nice challenge to have, you know, because it's reflective of the industry being buoyant and, you know, homeowners taking an interest in our industry as well. So, you know, it's a challenge we're happy to deal with, basically.
I mean, did the pandemic affect, if you like, the funds coming into the GGF? Has that affected you going forward as far as having the cash to do things that you might want to in the future? I'm thinking particularly, I mean, I was a great fan of the Fencer advertising campaign, getting out there to the public. Will there be the cash to be able to carry on doing that type of thing?
So the simple answer is yes. We've got an incredibly healthy balance sheet. We've got a lot of cash in the banks. That means that we can be sustained through really difficult periods. But we actually ended up last year in a decent state. So obviously there were about 3 months where trading figures were pretty low, but because of the bounce back and obviously saving costs during that downtime, we ended up the year in a pretty decent state. But regardless of that, you know, it's a really strong, sort of financially stable group of companies, which means that we can invest. Obviously, you know, for investment, we need to take a sound business case to our boards and, you know, get approval. So there's, you know, proper diligence over that, which is absolutely right. But yeah, the intention is very much to invest, and, you know, what better time where the industry is buoyant, we've come out of a tough period, to actually invest in our products and services, in our members, and do some really exciting things.
I mean, I know in the past there's always been the feeling, well, not for everybody, but in certain quarters, that the GGF was not always the most approachable of organizations. And I think that with you coming into this position, I mean, hopefully that's going to kind of make that easier for people. Is that part of the intention?
No, I mean, it's really interesting to hear. As I said, one of the things I want to do is get to know people's opinions about the Trade Federation, you know, and a broad range of opinions as well. It's funny because, you know, we're working in the group for what, 3.5 years now. I've never found anyone to be unapproachable, quite the opposite. So it's you know, it's interesting to hear that those are the perceptions, and clearly, as our industry's leading trade federation, we can't be seen to be unapproachable. So we need to do something about that. It's a shame because there's a lot of, you know, great staff within the Trade Federation, and in particular our technical team. Their knowledge is just absolutely incredible. So, you know, if there are things that are putting people off from interacting and joining, then, you know, we need to look at that, because it's a shame that people aren't getting the benefit of working with you know, the incredible talent in the Federation.
So I think it was very interesting, particularly when you were working on the commercial side, and it became much easier to talk to people within those sort of 4 organizations that you ran,
Yeah.
because the personalities of the individual people like Dave and Chris and everything came out, and that worked very well. But that isn't necessarily the case across the rest of the organization. Maybe more could be done to, if you like, introduce those people to the trade more throughout the organization.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's really important. I mean, it's, you know, it's great to hear what you've said about what we've done with the commercial businesses, and you know, I think we have done a lot of good and moved things forward, and it's been successful thanks to, you know, a lot of hard work and good work by the individuals that you've said about, and the teams that work with them. So yeah, we need to replicate that, and that's something that I'm keen to do, take a lot of the positives that we've been doing on the commercial side and bring that across to the Trade Federation as well.
Anda, thank you very much for your time. It's good of you to be so open, and I hope the questions weren't too pointed or nasty. They certainly weren't intended to be. But we look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the new position, and hopefully talk to you again soon as plans come to fruition.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. And, you know, thank you. I'm always happy to talk. I am approachable. So, you know, it's good to have a chat, and I'm always happy to be challenged, and I'll be as upfront as I can about things.
Thanks very much, Anda Gregory.
Thanks for your time.